Okay, Nupsi.
Hello.
Hello, thank you for joining me today on the KindShark podcast.
I'm so happy and privileged to be here.
So, as you know, I have been for years wondering, scanning, thinking of what it is I'm going to put out into the world. I think for our viewers watching, first off, I think it's important to know that we are siblings. I think that's one thing that I think is maybe kind of obvious, but maybe not. But sorry, go ahead.
I said I'm older.
No, you're not. Nice try. Although that would happen sometimes where people will confuse us and think that you are older than me. Yes, you like to use those things. So, but yeah, you know, the way we were raised, our mom and dad were always hustlers, entrepreneurs, on the go. And I think that seed has certainly been planted in all of us in our various ways. So I'm excited that I'm launching my podcast with you as my first guest. Thank you all.
Yes. Honored, you know.
Thank you. So before we get started, usually people like to know who the heck it is we're talking to. We're going to do things a little different in terms of how we're going to get to know you. We're going to do this thing called speed round of questions. Yes, it's going to be fun. All right, Nubwa. First off, favorite color?
Green.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Cat.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
What is the last article that you read? See your face. You all of a sudden got scared. Like, wait, did I recently read the article? Let me think about that.
What did I read? I was watching video. I was watching Netflix.
Okay, tell me, what is the last Netflix thing that you watched?
I forgot the name, but it's a cartoon. Paradise PD.
Interesting.
It's cartoon. It's a cartoon. Paradise PD.
I love how you have no shame in saying it's a cartoon. You just, whatever you feel like, you just watch. Nobody's like, yeah, I don't care. I love
But
cartoons.
actually, I'm right now. What I'm watching, like really watching, is Simpsons. Oh my gosh! Yeah,
really?
Yeah. I didn't realize how hilarious The Simpsons was. So.
Yeah.
For sure, that's something like I'm consistently watching. But the last thing I watched was that Paradise thing.
Okay. Do you recommend it for Naya, your niece?
No, not the Paradise. No. No way.
Okay. And then final question. You have to be stranded in a climate in a certain part of the world. Stranded with just your phone and one weapon. Would you rather be stranded in a desert, in an ocean, in a jungle, in the Arctic, or in the grassland savannas, with all the elements and the animals and the creatures hanging around too? Should I repeat it?
Which animal is in grasslands? Is that crocodile?
No, grassland is Africa now. All the elephants running, the rhinos. That's where you go. Okay.
I will go there. That's the most familiar place. Desert.
Okay. But please, I beg, can you clarify to people that all of Africa is not just animals and grassland and monkeys swinging from that? People in college used to ask me how I went to school on camel.
So wait, grassland. Okay, now this is where I'm getting confused because in Nigeria we don't have that grassland, do we? That's the
not really, right?
That's East Africa, right?
Yes.
With the giraffes, and you see, that's why I didn't know. People think that you know these things. I don't even know those things.
But it's like I don't even know.
I would say, to be quite honest, I would either do desert, but the problem with desert is there's no food.
Yes.
So either
it's a struggle to find it.
Desert or grassland.
Okay. The only problem you said with desert is there's no food. How will you survive in desert? What is your plan?
That's the thing.
Yes. Don't worry. We'll have another gist about that one to help you. So Nupsi, you got my official invitation to join this podcast, a couple of days ago, right? But we've been talking for a long time about, what I can do, what way I can live my purpose. And we can talk a little bit about mine, but today is for you. So I've been thinking, KindShark was something that was an idea that came to my mind about 5 or so years ago. I was talking to our mutual friend, John, having one of our big life conversations. And the idea of a shark, but one that is kind, really just like stuck to me, right? Like, okay, sharks have this reputation of being very, very vicious creatures. When you think of shark, you hear of either that a shark attack story that you heard and read in the news, or you think of Shark Tank, where these very rich and powerful people just tear people's dreams apart, just destroy it. But the interesting thing is, if you actually look at statistically sharks, there's like over 500 species. And of those, there's only like, how many? 30 that have been reported to attack humans. And even within those 30, only 12 are known to be particularly dangerous. So to me, the concept of, I've always been struck by, when we see something, we always immediately have a second like thought or trigger or reaction to it, right? And sharks do that. They make people react. And it's because we hear all our lives the stories about sharks, but really the stories are very incomplete. They're not the full thing. So
we stereotyped sharks.
Yes, we have stereotyped sharks. Yes. Just like many things we naturally, I think, as humans do. And then I think the second metaphor for me for KindShark is, as somebody who is, and you yourself has, been in the entrepreneurial world with your blog, you are considered a boss, right? A shark, but you also, there's this stereotype of these sharks being, horrible, scary, mean things. But at the same time, we think, we're starting to realize that kind of approach in being a boss, in being a leader, it doesn't quite get you to the outcome that you want. So again, to me, the word KindShark is a way to sort of remind us that regardless of whatever business pursuits, end goals we have, whenever we're interacting with humans, it's important to realize that, we have to acknowledge that human side of people and be kind and be considerate of what their emotions are, because ultimately we cannot control any of that. We can only control what we do. So in setting up the environment for people to be successful. So I in my explanation, my very long-winded explanation about KindShark and my inspiration, you and I have always had conversations about so many things in life. This whole concept of the, stereotypes and the gray area. Let's talk a little bit about you and why I call you, I think you are a KindShark. Yes. Because you're somebody who has also lived many different kinds of cultural experiences. And I think because of those things, it makes you be more understanding of almost that kind part. You understand how to do it based on your different contexts because you've traveled across cultures. So let's hear your story. I want people to learn why Nubwa today is the first official KindShark on the podcast. Let's hear why am I calling you from 5 hours different zone? It is 11 o'clock here in the US, and I don't even know what time it is over there for you.
4 o'clock, but tomorrow is changing because of daylight, so I don't even know what it will be tomorrow. No.
Go forward or backward? You go forward 1 hour, something like that.
We'll see when I wake up and what the time tells me. No, but to be quite honest, I'm just so happy that KindShark is now fully grown into this podcast, because this is something also you're always naturally good at, especially when we were in the States together. We always just I know I do a lot of this, but it's like we were talking a lot. We always used to talk. We can find whatever conversation and have those deep conversations, and that is something that is so important in general, to have someone who can always kind of listen and go back and forth in. And that's something, with our relationship, that has always been so great about that. And even though I'm all the way here, we still pick up the phone and it's like we're right next to each other, shout, like we're gisting. People are like, what are you shouting, you know? But like we can think, and after I finish talking to you, I get this better idea, perspective, and just creating a safe space. And that's something that, like you said, with our upbringing, something that we've always been naturally good at. And for me, you know, coming from Jos, Nigeria, which is a very naturally a its own diverse place full of different cultures, because that's the thing I like about Jos, is that even though we're originally from Borno State, you know, there's that, it's like like a particular like tribe, but in Jos it's so like diverse with the different ethnicity tribes and ethnicities. Then you also have like different interactions with people. So being able to grow up there and getting to learn different cultures from all over Nigeria that live in Jos, that played a huge role. Then we go and talk about like education wise, you know, we were privileged enough to go to like a school that was very international, you know. So in Nigeria, I was going to a school that was very American. So, you know, I step into those gates, and yes, those Hillcrest gates, yes, there are different cultures internationally, but then the foundation was that American curriculum. So,
which was different from other the Nigerian curriculum system, correct? For our viewers, yeah.
Yes, because okay, Nigeria has like the British system, you know. So what I always tell people is I don't know the metric system. I use inches, you know. I say miles, not kilometers. So even in my own country, I am sometimes a foreigner, to be quite honest, because of these systems that, you know, we grew up in. And so being able to kind of grow up in such and have such an experience and experience different cultures has kind of made that, like you say, that KindSharkness. I just added something for you. KindSharkness.
Thank you. I will trademark that one.
For you to always kind of be observing of different cultures, you know. So I've never kind of been in a place where there is one, quote unquote, like as growing up, dominant culture. Just being in Hillcrest, there's no dominant, like, okay, you know, I don't know how to explain it. Maybe you better can explain it. You also went to Hillcrest too.
I also did. Yeah.
But that interaction of having friends from, whether they're from Japan, having classmates from Japan, I had a classmate from Denmark, you know. It's so interesting now living in Europe, and I'm like, oh wow, it's kind of cool that kind of cool that I had a friend or a classmate from Denmark, you know. I'm thinking back and I'm like, wow, what a privilege that I was already exposed to that at such a young age, even though I didn't know not much, but now I'm learning about these cultures and I'm like, oh wow, this is so cool. Like I got to have that, and there are people in this Europe that have never even had that interaction with such people from further away, and so on and so on. Then going to America, you know, for my higher education, I was also happy that I was the transition was not too bad, because like I said, Hillcrest had that American foundation.
Yeah. So it almost made you used to differences.
Yes, because America is a salad bowl. Not, you know, there's tomatoes.
I thought it was a melting pot.
No, melting pot makes it that everybody must come together and be molded into one pot. Okay. And that takes away the individualism of people, and you're trying to make one culture. But what makes America attractive and what makes America, you know, great is actually the different cultures, the different tomatoes, onions. You can even have 2 types of onions in your salad.
Yes, you can.
You know what I'm saying? So in Hillcrest, I had a mini version of that salad bowl.
Yes.
And then in America, it's the biggest salad bowl, and there's even more toppings. You know, you add cheese on top. You know, you have those bread croutons.
Croutons is what they're called.
Exactly.
Yes. And there's even different kinds of cheeses.
So that it's unlimited.
Yes.
And that's the thing. The foundation, there's always the foundation, but then what you add into that, your own self. And so, going to America and also going to U of M and also being a part of the different cultures, the different groups, that's something was really huge for me. Today, I'm so privileged and happy that I joined and I became friends with people of the LGBT community that were at U of M, because I didn't even know anything about that too. Right. I mean, that was not something, in Nigeria that you know.
No.
Even
we went to a very somewhat conservative Christian school where that lifestyle was not necessarily encouraged as a positive thing. Yeah.
So I'm happy that I had even the mindset to be open about that in the first place. But to be quite honest, I'm seeing that because I also became friends and allies with the LGBT plus community, I'm actually seeing the advantages in my professional workplace, and that adds to my diversity. So I think with my transition, going to school in America, learning and having experiences has helped me understand that this is what my purpose is, because I will tell you what my purpose is.
Thank you for actually stealing my next question.
Okay. Then you can
what
stop.
Is your purpose? Why are you here on Earth? What is the reason that the universe has created and molded you and put you where you are and gave you the various experiences that it did?
I think my purpose is it's always going to be there. I mean, maybe I don't 100% know. Perhaps maybe in 2 years, the purpose even changes. God knows what is there in the soul. But I believe that my purpose is to bring unity. And I want to also I strongly believe that with love and gratitude, we can bring about unity.
I'm really touched. I think unity is definitely a word that can trigger some interesting reactions from people. Usually, when you hear unity, you think kumbaya, people holding hands together, being friends, hanging out, perfect, no problems. Is that what you mean by unity?
No. Actually, for me, what I mean by unity and why I say love and gratitude, it's kind of like my equation. So I say love plus gratitude gives you unity. It also always changes. I'm a huge fan of love, joy, peace, patience. Yes, it sounds like a bunch of kumbaya stuff, but the core about unity is that we can all be accepting of everybody's diversity or differences. For example, for me, my concept of unity is understanding that love is not judging. So when it comes to culture, and this is why I said it's a salad bowl and not melting pot, because that pot is what is holding that unity. That pot is unity.
Okay.
And how we coexist together in joy, and joy fuels love. So it's like all these components, whether it is philosophers, all of them, all these kumbaya things they're saying, it's all connected. It's all a cycle. If we practice these teachings, it's all the foundation is love. And if we all love each other, then there's unity. And unity does not mean that we have to be the same. I can be in unity with somebody who does not have the same look as me or the same concept of what life is.
Yeah. And you know what you mentioned, you said unity is love plus gratitude. And you said love for you means not judging.
Yes.
I think the times we live in right now, and I think with the burst of social media and the internet, with those plus and like buttons and whatever, we live in an era, I think humans we have this natural inclination to look at somebody and quickly do a quick assessment, judge them, like, okay, is this person good, bad, dangerous, not dangerous? And that's natural. I think as we've evolved through the years, that's what we do. Now, when you say not judge, how do you see people judging as part of the challenge towards unity? Because people judging, it sounds like to you, is something that, and maybe it's judging a certain way that gets people, that blocks them from reaching that love and that unity.
So for me, judging is this is where maybe people think maybe I get a little bit wacko. But for me, the best way to kind of put judging for me is understanding relativity. If you understand that things are relative to people's experiences, you can't really judge them. We always say this, no child is born racist, no child is born this, that. And then obviously we know that steps of that child, the experiences that that child went through is what has made them to be different from your perspective. And where I'm going with this is, when I say relativity, is what I may consider as right may be what someone else considers as wrong. But then understanding that, okay, fine, this is what I believe. I stand by my truth. I can talk with you about it. We can see where we can share our experiences as to why. We can still live with each other and see if there's understanding of the relativity. We don't need to cancel each other out. Yes, there are some crazy people in the past that have done crazy things because that is what they thought as right or wrong. And I'm not saying that if you go and kill somebody, it is right. But at the same time,
there's some standard, absolute, like, right and wrongs that I think as humans we all agree with.
And those are rules that, we all collectively come together. This is why in the past, whether it is biblically, there was the 10 Commandments.
Yes.
So over time, we do adapt and change. And that's what I'm saying, relativity. We have to also see with times. And I like to say, like, in the concept of understanding culture and love, is that culture is shared experiences that a collective group of people create, adapt, and change. So the culture of love, you can kind of say, can always be created. You can always create and always love new things. But we can always adapt. So as I was saying previously, with when I first joined the LGBTQ as an ally, I didn't know that. But my previous experiences of understanding that was, no, it is wrong. But why is it quote unquote wrong? That's where I say relativity comes into play.
Relative to the culture you originally were raised in, relative to that culture, you were told that lifestyle is not even lifestyle. That humanness, that side of people being human, you know, and just living their lives and loving the people they want to love, was viewed as not the right way.
Correct.
And then you, however, experience interacting and making friends and becoming very involved as an ally. And it gave you a different understanding also relative to where I am now, you know, and what my understanding is different, because I understand in the US and in certain cultures, you know, this is, they grew up in a different relative.
And I have to understand that my experience in my culture is different from that of the American experience of culture. The history my culture has is so different. So I can't come and start applying what I know and say gum in this culture. So
this is what you must do.
Yes. So that's why it's like scientifically too. I'm pretty sure maybe Einstein is clapping for me somewhere. I don't know. Don't mind me. I'm a huge Einstein fan. But the theory, whatever science in physics, we can always apply it into the real world. And that's what I mean with judging. For me, when this clicked for me was Chadwick Boswick.
Yes.
When he passed away, his death was so painful to me, because I remember on social media when people were teasing him about his health. And that was when I was personally having a breakdown with social media, like literally like, okay, this place is toxic. You can't generate yourself feel good about telling somebody that. And then come to find out he had cancer and he did all of these things. And he didn't even tell anyone. So that's what I mean with judging. That is also a type of judging, a type of judgment. And the same people that sometimes you cancel or you complain about, perhaps that same culture that said, okay, he looks like this, that, perhaps there was another person that you don't even agree with that may have disagreed with you. Like, it's an endless cycle that we have to understand our experiences and not to judge. And you can still state your opinion,
right?
But you can state it in a way that does not reflect hate. You can still you can still kind of, I guess, judge. I mean, like you said, we have those foundations of what we know is right or wrong, but it's understanding that that other person may not agree. Sorry, people, it's just an African thing.
To hone it in.
To enter, you know. And that's where, for me, my background is taking a step back, listening and understanding people's experience and learning from them and being grateful.
I really appreciate what you just shared, because you in essence are talking about, really, my vision for this podcast is for people to hone and value that skill of pausing and questioning your own thought process, questioning what's going on in your mind, questioning your judgments, and saying, okay, I'm thinking this assessment of this person or being, whatever, based relative of my own upbringing, but that person has a completely different experience, has been raised in a different culture. My opinion overexerted on them is not recognizing that fact that we have different experiences as we're raised, which makes us who we are. No, I'm really struck by, oftentimes I struggle with, on the one hand, we are told to be who we are, but on the other, we're also told to be accepting. Yes. And for me, this year especially, I'm trying to really practice my values of gratitude, practice my mindfulness, stopping, pausing, assessing, okay, that thing I was about to say, or that judgment, or that assumption I made about that person based on a tweet or a video or something I saw, my immediate reaction, questioning that before just reacting, in essence. Speaking of reacting, I'm curious, but you came from Nigeria, then you spent a short time in Virginia, then you ran up to Michigan, well, actually, no, forced up to Michigan.
Then I went to Spain.
Then you went to Spain for a while, then you came back, then you lived in like Detroit area. Then the next thing I know, you're in Munich, like 6 hours away, like what the heck? Okay. Through all these experiences, I'm sure as you've entered and exited different communities, different cultures, you haven't always understood how they do things, right? You mentioned earlier, culture is just a shared way of people in a certain geographic area doing a certain thing. There has to be stories of you entering somewhere and just completely kwabaing something that they did and just making a big cultural gaffe. Can you talk to us a little bit about a story where you just were just very, very not, there culturally?
I don't know. Okay, so I have many silly stories, but actually the one that actually popped up in my head, right, is I've been looking for, when I moved to Munich, me and Julian, my husband, were looking for Nigerian restaurants.
Yes.
authentic Hong Kong Nigerian restaurant. And we finally found one. You enter and you're in the homeland. I'm in a
You're
village.
back to Nigeria.
I'm in a village in Oyo State. Like, that's just how it feels.
I love it.
So I always order like my goat head pepper soup, all the traditional soups.
Yes.
And what I did now was that I was excited and I took it to work. Now you have to understand that we use stockfish.
Can you describe stockfish, please?
Stockfish is dried fish. So it's basically dried fish that you add that adds flavor. It's salted, and so it adds and enhances the flavor. So when you cook with it, you cook it with the meats. And our soups are like thick soup that you eat with. You can eat it with, like, I guess some people could eat it with rice, but we eat it with like flour, like maize flour. That's a common one. Maize flour. You can eat it. Tuo is tuo, and what it is that this soup was very, very traditional soup. But the thing with stockfish, it's fish, so it smells.
Yes.
I like that
strong odor.
I grew up with it.
Yes.
For me,
when culture thing you are used to.
I'm used to, exactly. But you know, there's a particular part in the Heathrow Airport, gate G5 or something like that. Everybody knows the gate. Everybody knows that gate. Once you're in Heathrow, you go, and just from afar, you can smell it, and you're knowing you're closer to home. That's when I get excited, you know?
Yes.
So I took my egusi soup with me and my goat head pepper soup with me. But this was a public place with lots of foot traffic, with lots of international students from all over the world.
Yes.
I now decided to microwave my thing. And you know what? It was that Heathrow Airport.
Oh God, Nubwa made the whole place boom. Oh God.
And you know, I wasn't embarrassed about it, to be quite honest. I've accepted, like, you know what I've said, like maybe 4 years ago, me would be like, oh my gosh, my culture. I wasn't embarrassed about that, but I did feel bad for them. I really did. Because for the whole, like, 2 days, it was...
I bet some people even it absorbed into their clothes and they carried it back home.
It gets on your clothes. It really does. It really does. I know it's not like the story that somebody is typically used to, like, you know, I entered. For me, I think I don't really have those stereotypical, like, stories, cultural shock things, to be quite honest.
Because we were raised in culture shock 24/7.
So for me, it's like tiny nuances, things that I've done. And I'm like, okay, another one for me is in Europe and in Spain, this was normal. People are more like in the metro, in their subway system. They're very touchy, right? Not touchy, but it's kind of like similar to when you enter the train. There's no space.
Yeah.
You know?
People are like sardines, mash in there.
Yes, they're okay being like that, you know, like they will just come in front of you and then they're like, brrr. For me, coming from America, that was different because America has that personal space, individual.
Especially in the Midwest. Yes.
Exactly. This is my space.
Yes.
So in Spain, I kind of was like, okay, I have to switch to Niger mode. Like, you know, that's what it was like. Switch to Niger mode. Okay, this is okay. Don't be like, this one is in my space.
Right.
Then I now started going through the escalator in Spain, and if you can't, you have to stand on one side because so when you get out of the metro and you want to exit, you know, it's underground, so you want to exit the main floor.
Yes.
I understand.
Yes.
No personal space. Then I joined the escalator and I noticed that people were getting angry at me. I said, what happened? Personal space. I share in Europe. The left side to have space for people who are walking.
Aye. Okay.
So I was just standing and blocking, and people get pissed about that. That is a cultural thing in Europe where you are supposed to stand.
Yes.
And I've learned that when I came to Germany, I knew that, and I get pissed. I'm like, this is a foreigner. Like when I'm walking and I see somebody there, I'm like, you're a foreigner, you're a tourist, move.
Gafara.
And like I even feel it. It's so and then in Germany, okay, I'm like, okay, this is similar to America in the metro. As you can tell, the metro was one of my biggest cultural shocks, understanding how that, because I didn't grow up there. So, you know, in the metro life. So I understood, okay, now I switched, because Germans have the individual, is like America, back to personal space.
Yes.
Okay, I got that. I'm like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay.
I can do that.
But then, this is where you come into play. And I'll say I'm going to call my family. So the metro is very loud on its own. And the rule of thumb here is you shouldn't be too loud. Especially in the morning, like at 7 a.m.
Yes.
But
how did Nigerian Nubwa absorb that information?
At first I was defensive. I can't be shouting. I was choked by it, but now I don't care. I still shout, you know. But the thing is, they will look at you. Maybe I look back at them. This time we have mask now, so just look.
Just eyes.
I'm just looking, but I know it's not kind of like part of the culture, because you know when they are talking on the phone, you see them.
Yeah.
You know, it's quiet. It's more like, because you're doing a shared space. So that's the kind of idea, is like you have to be respectful.
Yes.
But that's relative, because in Nigeria you must be loud.
Yes.
Like, you know, so that's what I mean with relative. And I'm not pained by that. I don't take offense that somebody is annoyed at me shouting. I get it, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I really do. You know, it's the same thing with if they go to Spain and the metro and somebody is entering with them, they would like, okay, that in this place culture.
Oh, yep. And they also have to maintain themselves.
Yep.
Thank you for that very interesting story. I know there's so many, I think, across all of this, our international people who have lived across cultures. Yeah, and what they end up being are, laugh moments and learning lessons. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest takeaways, I hope, is that life is really just a big lesson.
It is.
It really is.
Experience. Really is an experience.
It is. And I really appreciate you joining me today to share, you know, your perspective as a KindShark on cultures and life and all things humanness. So, Nubwa, again, thank you. Any final parting words to wish our fellow yes.
Shakas, KindSharkers.
KindSharkers.
The first thing, I know I said a lot about judging and all, but in order for us to understand relativity is that we have to first not judge ourselves. That is the biggest lesson, because in order, if you can apply that to yourself, it's like then you can apply it to everyone else. And I like what you said before. You said, you know, when you think now, you pause and you think, then you move on. You know, you also accept, and I'm like, okay, this is what it is, this is my perspective. You create, you adapt, and you can change if you choose to.
Exactly. But just that awareness. Yes. Thank you, Nupsi. Love you.
Love you,
we will talk soon.
We're about to call each other now.
I know, exactly. Like, okay, how did that go? Good thing we can edit, right? Oh my God.